Hello and welcome to the latest 10-minute monster from Mostly Off Topic. I'm Paul and today we're going to be covering the Azer, a elemental fire metal dwarf. Kind of look like dwarf until you see big fiery heads everywhere. So maybe dwarfs after they've been chucking the brandy around from the Christmas pudding, who knows. And in this series we kind of cover the monsters in the monster manual. Not really focused on the stat blocks or how to play them tactically in the game or anything like that. But just reading through the descriptions, pulling out a few key things, and just learning what it tells us about the Dungeons and Dragons world. And then kind of riffing off it, see if there's any ways in which we kind of think about incorporating them into a campaign or something like that. Any ways in which we could improve them to kind of make them the focus of the game a little bit more. And here we are. This is an elemental plane of fire creature. I say creature, though strictly speaking, they're made, not born. So they're more androids than they are creatures, but there we have it. And they're not big fans of the Efreet. So the first thing that we kind of learn about the Azers and the world is that there is a join between the elemental plane of fire and the elemental plane of earth. They dwell in a kingdom, so it can be ruled. So that means that there must be a ruler of the Azer, a king or a queen. But it's mountainous and it's volcanic, and it's kind of, as you would imagine, a mashup of fire and earth. Beneath that, there are loads of gems and metals, and these guys kind of, the Azers mine those. So again, kind of very dwarven in that kind of theme. However, the Efreet, who aren't happy with them, and they're not happy because it was the Azers that constructed the City of Brass, or at least helped. And one of the key things here is that the Efreet are a little bit afraid about the Azers knowing secret ways into the City of Brass. So what this tells us is, one, there are secret ways into the City of Brass, and two, they're not known about beyond the Azers. So perhaps you know that they exist, or there must be secret ways into the City of Brass. Oh, but what are they? I don't know. Maybe those guys know. So the Efreet kind of want to crush them underfoot, want to re-enslave them, but also kind of a little bit afraid of what could happen if the Azers kind of chuck that news out into the multiverse, I guess. So anyway, they're kind of busy in their kingdom extracting these metals, which I assume they turn into things and trade. So there must be some kind of like trade out of there. And they're fending off salamander raiders. Now, salamanders come in different versions, so I'm assuming that the weakest versions are chucked off to attack the Azers, which kind of makes me wonder how bothered the Efreet actually are. The Efreet are pretty powerful. Why don't they just go and take back this kingdom? They are also masterful artisans. They can create beautiful works and precious from their gems and precious metals, and they rate that treasure above all things. And if they want a particular kind of jewel or a particular kind of metal, they're not adverse to travelling the plains to go and get it, which tells us that they have the ability to travel the plains, which isn't in their stat block. So they're either using existing portals, as planar dwellers do, or they've got spellcasters amongst their ranks perhaps, or maybe they kind of trade those gems for spellcasters to help them. Something to kind of flesh out, I guess. But it also means that you can have these creatures kind of hunting around in the prime material plane, and there's a reason for that, and that's because they're trying to extract metal or gems or what have you. They get summoned to the prime material plane, and they get summoned to help create a magic item or a work of art. So it's quite likely then that kind of maybe the dwarves are able to pull them across there. Or maybe kind of some other races that don't have access to the dwarf's natural skills kind of want to do that. And the quote here is quite interesting. It says, "Give me 100 Azer slaves, and I can forge an empire that would make the gods tremble." So my question is, these guys, challenge rating 2, not great fighters, +5 to hit, not 7 damage, 8 damage, pretty common for creatures like that. So what is it that they can do that would make the gods tremble if you only had 100 of them? Is it that they're able to churn out fantastically great weapons and you're going to equip your army with this kind of slew of magic items? Or is it that they're really good siege engineers, really good sappers? They built the city of brass. They helped build that. They constructed secret passageways and whatnot in. They are at home in the earth. They kind of tunnel, they dig. So I would imagine that the Azer's real value to the Efreet, or to any military, is in their ability to undermine or to build siege engines, or to kind of construct fantastic engineering weaponry that can then kind of be used to pummel. So it's not about anything that they themselves do. It's not about their ability to produce kind of magical items, either even at volume or what have you. It's about the knowledge that they can bring to bring down strongholds. And perhaps then you don't just summon them to the prime material plane to knock up, you know, a lovely kind of sculpture, or to work something in metal. You bring them to make tanks out of metal, or you bring them to kind of, you know, dig underneath the Elven Kingdom for a surprise attack, or you take out kind of the famed stronghold of the orcs in the north, or, you know, whatever it is that you kind of, you know, choose to do to bring these back. I think that's quite an interesting kind of little spin on. Yeah, they knock up quite good stuff. Well, okay, you get a team of 5, and you're rolling across the plains in your kind of tank-esque weaponry. That's a pretty big arms race right there. Of course, you're probably attracting the attention of the Efreet, and I would imagine that wherever you get a kind of chunk of Azers, you're probably getting some salamanders or some Efreet kind of intrigue or attacks kind of coming along with you. So you may want to kind of understand that. It's also worth bearing in mind that the Azers don't particularly hate the salamanders. Salamanders have a massive animosity towards the Azers. Their view is if the Azers were still enslaved, they'd be a free race. Okay. But the Azers are kind of like, yeah, you know, you guys come over here and you start killing us, but you know, we're not going to attack you back. We're kind of indifferent. Can we just get on with our mining, please, if you don't mind? And given that they're made, not born, and there's absolutely no kind of discussion about, well, what was the first one made, there's a gap for a creation myth there. They have a hierarchy. It's a kingdom. Kingdoms have hierarchies, right? So what is their creation myth? Perhaps the king of the land was the first Azer, crafted by the Efreet, granted a little measure of free will, and he kind of is aged and is kind of like, you know, looking to kind of move on, but is made, so he's not got a soul, so he's got no afterworld to move on to. So how would that kind of change the approach of the Azers? That's something to kind of think about there. Would there be paternal and maternal affection from one Azer to the next? Or would they just simply try to seek and refine the next kind of batch of Azers made? So you get different versions. Oh, well, that's a Series 5 child. You know, we've upgraded that to the Series 7 now, which is twice as strong, or what have you. Or do they kind of make niche Azers? We've made this one's really small so you can get into the really tight crevasses, or what have you. So there's a little bit there. Do they even fear death? You know, how would a creature of this nature kind of look upon questions of that? So kind of, you know, what could we change about this? I mean, we talked a little bit about various things there. It's pretty well designed. It's fairly consistent in its stat block. So I don't know that there's much that we would want to change about this. Perhaps other than kind of emphasising different varieties of it, specifically created for particular niches. Make sure that they kind of have the ability to trade as well, and also kind of create them with some of that engineering skills so that they are able to take that kind of separate role. So some good campaigns. How could we kind of create a campaign around this? An obvious one is the Secrets of the City of Brass. For whatever reason, the player characters want to get into the City of Brass, or they want to see the City of Brass, or they want to claim it as their own, whatever version of that is. And they're not able to through the conventional means of just travelling there. Maybe the Efreet that rule the City of Brass are not friends, and therefore they kind of like seek out the Azer's secrets to be able to get into the City of Brass. And the Azer are clearly like, well, we'll tell you, but you got to go and do these things for us. So there's a whole set of quests available there. Or maybe it's a search for the Master Craftsman. Maybe kind of the Azer commission the player characters to kind of find the entity that first made them. They have to kind of go through sages or kind of, you know, dangerous lands to kind of do that. That would be quite an interesting plains hopping. You can see that there would be some creatures of deceit that maybe claim that. And then what happens if you find the Master Craftsman? And then perhaps the Azers are in the service of the big, bad, evil guy. That doomsday device that you kind of think that you are hunting down, that you think is some kind of physical object, turns out to be a clutch of Azers. The reason why the walls came tumbling down wasn't because of the histrionics of the big bad evil waving his arms with some magic spell. It was some carefully engineered, meticulously crafted maths work went into that to understand the structural integrity of the walls themselves. And you find this out, and kind of what do you do, and how do you work that? And then finally, we spoke about there being kind of possibly newer models, better models. So what happens when those creatures decide that they don't want to be at the bottom of the pecking order? They're the most capable with the least rights. Is there an internal feud in the Azers? Do your player characters come across a bit of a civil war raging? And how would that be revealed, and how could they interact with that? Thanks for listening. If you like this, then like. If you enjoy content of this type, then please subscribe. We also cover Lord of the Rings, a living card game, and we also do a couple of Dungeons & Dragons actual plays. We're running through a Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and we're also doing an intrigue game that grew out of the Champions of Chult, who defeated Azer in the Tomb of Annihilation game. And they're kind of like now trying their hand at domain management. So you can pick those up at the channel. And in any case, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And looking forward to doing the Banshee next.